Spending. You've outlined a huge spending spree, over 80 billion extra a year. And you say it can all be paid for out of taxing the rich and business. But it's not true, is it, Mr. Corbyn? People on modest incomes are going to pay more tax under your plans.
Oh, only those earning over £80,000 per year will see a tax increase.
Well, let's hold on. You're scrapping the marriage allowance.
The marriage allowance is £250 a year.
And that goes to people earning less than 80,000.
For married couples, but those people that are cohabiting in a very happy family atmosphere and bringing up children do not get the benefit of that.
But those who do get it will lose it.
It seems to me this is a step towards equality, which
you may be right. My point is,
started a long time ago.
You may be right. That's not my point. My point is that these people, there's almost 2 million of them, are going to lose £250, and they earn a lot less than 80,000.
But they will also be getting a pay rise when we bring in a living wage. They will also be getting improvement in free nursery provision for 2 to 4 year olds.
But they are going to pay more tax.
They will also get properly funded schools.
But they are going to pay more tax.
They won't get the advantage. It's actually taking away £250.
Let me give you another example. You're going to have higher dividend taxes, and that'll hit people on modest incomes too, not just the rich. Take somebody on a state pension. Maybe they've also got an annuity of about 4,000, a small private pension, and they've saved and they've got dividend income of about 2,000. At the moment, they pay £9 in income tax. That's it. Under you, they'll pay over £400 in income tax. We're talking about people who are just on £14,000
They'll be taxed on the basis of their total income.
14,000.
Yeah,
they'll pay 400 more.
They'll be taxed on the basis of their total income,
and they would pay 400 more.
And it's a graded tax, so that would be that would.
But they are not anywhere near. They're not anywhere near 80,000, and you've said nobody below 80,000 would pay tax, and these people earning 14,000 would pay 400 more.
I would question that figure actually, but what I would also say is that the whole purpose behind our manifesto, which I have here, is to recognise that we have to do something about the underfunding of our public services and the poverty and inequality that austerity has brought to this country.
I'm just saying you're saying you're adding to people on £1,400.
You haven't asked any questions about poverty and austerity.
Let me come on. Well, I do ask the question. So let's come on to the top 5% of earners, where you hope to get all your money. That plus business as well. You often imply that these top 5%, they actually don't pay much tax at the moment, and you're going to make them do so. What share of income tax revenues do they currently pay?
They pay a top rate of about 45-50%.
No, what share of income tax revenues do they contribute?
They contribute quite a lot, of course.
How much?
I couldn't give you the exact figure, but they contribute quite a lot.
They already contribute 50% of all income tax.
But they are
revenues.
on very high earnings.
Of course, and they're paying a very high amount of tax.
We think they could and should pay a little bit more.
But it seems to me the tax base now has got narrower and narrower. And if you take the very richest, the top 0.1%, these are people earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, they pay 8%, sorry, 1 in 8 of all income tax, 12% of all income tax they pay. It would only take a small
number. But there's corporate taxation as well on top of that. But you're only talking of income tax.
I'm only talking income tax. But it would only take a small number of these people to leave the country, and there are only 31,000 of them in 0.1%, your tax base crumbles.
No, it doesn't crumble at all, because there's also a large proportion of income comes from corporate taxation as well.
But I'm talking income tax revenues, your single biggest tax stream, and more it's paid by a few people at the top. So therefore, if they don't like you and your tax rises, you lose your tax base.
I think they would also recognise that tax rates in general have gone down, that the levels of inequality have gone up, the levels of personal wealth for them have gone up enormously over the past 10 years, and they can see all around them the crumbling of public services and the terrible levels of child poverty that exist across Britain.
But if these people leave, you don't have the money.
Andrew,
you don't have the money if these people leave.
The whole message has to be, we need more equality, we need more opportunity in our society. I'm sure you would agree with that.
If your tax base leaves the country, you don't have the money for that public spending.
There is no reason why they would have to leave the country, and they shouldn't, because we want people to be here, we want people to be investing, and also they will get the benefits of a growing economy. They will get the benefits of the investment opportunities we will bring through that growing economy as well.
And then there's the amount you're going to borrow. You intend to borrow hundreds of billions for investment. You're going to borrow couple of hundred million more for nationalisation. You're going to borrow billions for the Green Deal. Borrow. Is there no limit to what can go on the Corbyn credit card?
Well, first of all, for nationalisation, you don't borrow. What you do is change share ownership for government bonds. It becomes an investment from which we...
You're creating more government debt.
No. Can I finish?
You're creating debt.
If you take over a company, say a water company, and you exchange those shares for government bonds, you then own the water company, the public as a whole. It will be run very differently, and the income from the water comes to the public. Comes to the public purse.
To acquire these companies, you have to issue more debt.
You change
up to about 200 billion.
You exchange it for government bonds, which obviously
do
attract an interest rate, but it attracts a benefit. And I think you'll find that ultimately it becomes cost neutral.
Is there any limit to the Corbyn credit card?
We are not going to willy-nilly borrow. What we want to do is deal with the worst aspects of what's happened in austerity, the worst aspects of poverty in Britain, and on public ownership. We've made it very clear that those natural monopolies like Royal Mail, like the train operating companies, and like the water industry will be taken into public ownership, as will the national grid, to ensure that we can get development and investment in the national grid to ensure
and of course,
that the green energy revolution
you will have to
place.
borrow for all that investment as well, because it will now be on the government's balance sheet. And then at the weekend, you said you were going to compensate the WASPy women, and they're the ones who feel they've been hard done by on state pensions. But I don't see, I've got your grey book here, the costings for it. I don't see any sign of how you're going to pay for that.
I've got a grey book here if you want.
No, I've got yours, that's fine. Where do you pay for it?
It's, first of all, let's deal with the issue.
No, I know the issue, and I understand the issue.
You might, but I'm not sure all our viewers do.
But I'd like to know where you go. Let's assume it's a great issue, and you're right. How do you pay for it?
It's a moral case. Those women...
How do you pay for it?
Those women were shortchanged by government, shortchanged in 2011 by the change in the pension rate. I met a group...
I'm accepting that, Mr. Corbyn. I'm asking you, it costs 60 billion.
Andrew,
how do you pay for it?
Can I explain why?
No, I'd like you to explain how you pay for it.
Let me explain why.
Explain how you pay for it. That's my question.
Let me explain why.
Explain how you pay for it.
We'll pay for it because it has to be paid for.
But how?
It has to be paid for. It's a moral debt.
How will you pay for it?
It's a moral debt that's owed to those women.
Will you borrow?
Often between £30,000 and £50,000 has been wrongly taken from them.
I understand that's your case. That's not what I'm arguing with you about. I'm arguing to say, how will you find the money? Now, will you borrow for that?
Had a court case gone the other way, the government would now be having to do it. What we're saying is we will do it. We will do it by paying for it from government reserves, and if necessary, because it's not all going to be paid in 1 year, we will have to borrow in the long term. But I just
you
say,
would borrow for
can I finish?
But you would borrow for current spending.
Andrew, I realise your
words.
Determination to find out about this. Can I explain?
Well, I would like to find out if you'd answer the question. You would borrow the 60 billion.
Andrew, it's going to be paid for to a specific cohort of women.
I don't know it's going to be paid for, Mr. Corbyn. It's £60 billion. It's not in your grey book. So are you going to borrow for it?
We will.
It's the only way you can pay for it.
We will raise the money for it, either from reserves or, if necessary...
We haven't got 60 billion of reserves, Mr. Corbyn.
Andrew, as I was explaining, it doesn't all get paid in 1 year.
Okay.
It is over some years that it's paid for. And I just think we should just think for a moment. This is a group of women.
You've given that case, Mr. Corbyn, and there's other things I want to go on with. You've given that case.
And we will make sure they are compensated.
You just can't tell me how you pay for it.
I can. I've just told you that we will pay for it through either government reserves or, if necessary, borrow
Where
to do it.
does the government have 60 billion of reserves?
I didn't say it did have 60 billion of reserves, but
all right. Well, it comes out at about, what, 6-7 billion a year? Where do we have these reserves?
It doesn't all have to be paid in 1 year.
It has to be paid over a period of time.
Probably over 10
What is the size of our reserves at the moment?
It's nowhere near that figure,
right,
of course.
Exactly.
And you're right on that.